Hiya, welcome back to my channel. I'm Minerva, and today we're going to be talking about what is dyslexia. So, what is dyslexia? Dyslexia is a specific learning difficulty. It's located in the brain, and mainly what it does is it affects how you process information. So, what do I mean when I say you have trouble, processing information? Well, let's say, for example, let's look at some real life examples with reading. Okay, so you might have difficulty when you're looking at, say, a book you have to read or a textbook, you're having difficulty comprehending large chunks of information, what that's actually saying to you. You have difficulty with reading fluency. So if you're trying to read into yourself, a page from a novel, you might have some difficulty. You might be quite slow working your way through it because you're having to take your time to process what's actually written there. Your word attack skills might be difficult. A word attack. So, for example, you come across a word that is new to you that you don't know. Maybe you try to sound it out. Your ability to break that word down can be quite difficult for you. It takes some time for your brain to actually sort of take the word and divide it into chunks and to try to sound it out, try to understand it. Writing difficulties. So you might have issues with sentence structure. What goes where in a sentence? English, for example, is usually framed, subject, verb, object. I am going to the shop, something like that. And that might be a bit tricky, someone understanding that format. With dyslexia, spelling can be an issue. Your handwriting can be an issue. Your brain's trying to process how to, if you're being asked to copy a sentence a teacher has written on the board, you're trying to copy that down. Your brain's trying to process that. It's taking a bit more time. But the teacher's going, right, come on, we need to go. It's a struggle. You might have problems with reading aloud, which is, if you're being asked to stand up in front of your class and read, a paragraph or a page, your brain needs more time to process what you're reading. So when you're trying to read that out and publicly, you're having to cope with that. And there's the additional sort of stress of being watched publicly, which is going to make it worse. It involves memory issues. It involves organization and planning issues. It involves sequencing issues. So what I mean by sequencing is basic examples would be seasons: spring, summer, autumn, winter. If you have someone with dyslexia, they might get a bit confused about what comes when. So they might go, oh, spring, winter, autumn, summer, for example, or months of the year. They might get a bit confused about what comes when. So things that happen in order, they might get confused about the order. Temporal time issues, for example. It might be not being able to read a clock properly, either analog or digital. It might be, not being able to have a good idea of when, okay, have that done in 15 minutes, not being able to understand, be able to process time properly, or okay, 15 minutes has passed. And all of this kind of links in with self-esteem issues. You'll very often find people who have dyslexia, they might have struggled at school, and depending on who your teacher was, how supportive the school was, you might have had a really good experience, very positive experience, but people's experience can be very negative, and they do have confidence and self-esteem issues surrounding their own belief in their ability to do at least academic work competently. Dyslexia is not actually related to your intelligence. Your intelligence, how smart you are, has got nothing to do with you being dyslexic. Dyslexic means you're having some trouble processing things, okay? And they can be a wide variety of things. But you can be perfectly intelligent and go on have a very, very successful life, a very, very successful career in whatever it is takes your interest. Famous people, for example. I know Tom Holland was in the news recently because he was talking about his experience with dyslexia. Keanu Reeves, Keira Knightley from the business world, Richard Branson, who owns Virgin, he's dyslexic. Steve Jobs was dyslexic, Even writers, Roald Dahl was dyslexic. People who went on to have perfectly wonderful careers and lives of their own. And even, locally, like I support, students, primary school, secondary school, I support students at university level. And my students at university, for example, I've got ones, in the art college. I've got ones, doing engineering. I've got ones doing law, business, politics, students doing languages. You can learn a foreign language, even if you're dyslexic. So dyslexia can affect a number of things, but it's not the be all and end all of your life. Your life is very much what you make of it. And yes, you have to put the work in. And hopefully you have people who will support you in school and will support you at home, but you can make a life whatever you want of it. Dyslexia is genetic. It is very common. About 10% of the population in the UK and 10% of the population in Ireland have dyslexia. It can be diagnosed later in life. So you might not be diagnosed as a child, you can be diagnosed as an adult, even as an older adult. You can't catch it of someone, just to make that clear. And even if you're born into a family, like say, for example, your father is dyslexic, and maybe you have a sibling who's dyslexic, but you're not dyslexic, that's not going to suddenly change. You're not going to suddenly become dyslexic as you get older. There is something you might have heard of called acquired dyslexia, and that is typically what that. I don't like the phrase exactly because I don't think it's. I think it's a wee bit misleading. It doesn't mean dyslexia as in the civic learning difficulty genetic condition. It means dyslexia as in you're no longer able to read and write as you once were previously. So, for example, let's say you are walking out in the street and a bit of scaffolding falls from a nearby building and hits you on the head. Because of a brain injury, you might now have difficulties where you previously did not have difficulties in your reading and writing. Okay. And that would be called acquired dyslexia. You have now acquired reading and writing difficulties because of a brain injury. And that can come from a physical, falling down the stairs at work and hitting your head off the floor, a car accident, something like that. It can come from a stroke. There's a number of different ways that you could acquire that sort of injury, but you're not going to spontaneously become dyslexic, even if you are from a dyslexic family, even if you're from a family with dyslexic people in it. So there's an awful lot I can talk about dyslexia, but I don't want this to be like a really massively long video where I just go through everything about dyslexia. I want to break it down for you in different sort of bits and pieces, different videos, so you can sort of niche into what you want to know. So we might leave it there for today. But I hope this information has been helpful, giving you a better understanding of what dyslexia is and what you can do, with dyslexia. If you have any questions or comments, please do leave them down below. As always, I invite you, if you're interested in this sort of thing, if you've enjoyed the video, to please subscribe and like the video. But look, other than that, very nice having you here. And take it easy, and I'll see you again soon, okay? Bye.